Over the months, I started using new technique, developing these Philadelphia Hoagie Rolls, creating a softer interior, a crispy exterior with an amazing rise, and I can't wait to show you. Here are the Philadelphia Hoagie Rolls 2.0. On the screen are the dry ingredients. Ascorbic acid and diastatic malt powder will help your dough improve drastically. So gather these together, let's get started. You'll need to start with room temperature water to make the Poolish. So what's different from the first recipe, I am using diastatic malt powder and the sugar inside of my Poolish, which will help it rapidly ferment over 3 hours around room temperature, anywhere from 70 to 80, even 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't even worry, you can let this Poolish ferment over 7 hours. It will be just the same, maybe even better. However, this right here has been fermenting for 3 hours, so I'm going to add it into the dough mixer. A new ingredient here is egg, which will give our dough that thin outer brittle texture. Going with the flour, half the amount of cold water, because we'll finish the dough off at the end with the rest, and then ascorbic acid. Use this very small amount because this will give that fluff to your dough. Basically, it's an acid just like citrus, so you could substitute this recipe with half a lemon. Now once the dough comes together, I'm going to add in the salt and the water, and I will increase the mixer to 300 RPMs on high speed, and finally I'll slowly drizzle in the extra virgin olive oil. This dough was quick to mix in only 7 minutes, but look at the dough's extensibility. Right now what you want to do is round it off, add it into an oiled container, and allow it to rise for 30 minutes at room temperature. Now a great habit for any baker is to pre-shape your dough before the final shape. So here I'm dividing the dough into 3 large pieces for 3 12-inch rolls. However, you can definitely make 6 personal sized rolls for this recipe. Now you just want to gently shape these into a round dough ball, and we're going to let it rest again for 30 minutes at room temperature before we final shape the dough. Now for the most crucial step of this recipe. Set the sticky side down on the table. Roll this dough out with a rolling pin, because I've researched and I've learned that Vietnamese banh mi are almost the same as Philadelphia Hoagie Rolls. And they use this technique where you're going to laminate the dough very thin, so you don't want any single air bubble whatsoever. Now use that rolling pin until your dough reaches a length of around 14 to 15 inches, and that's when you're ready to start to roll this dough. Tuck and roll the dough all the way and make sure it's nice and even like a rectangle. Keep rolling it all the way until you get to the very end, and make sure you widen the bottom part because we want to tuck and tie the ends of your dough roll. As you can see right here, I'm preparing to seal that seam at the bottom, and I'm pressing nice and tight. And the corners of the dough, you just want to close them up. Use your fingers, press it all together. I have found, yes, that this step is tedious. However, it does create the perfectly shaped rolls. Now, this is a total size of 11 inches. I'm sure that later in this process, when we stretch it, it'll become 12-inch rolls. So I'm gonna spray these rolls with water, and the top part I'm only dusting with sesame seeds, and then the rest with coarse cornmeal. That's that Philly staple. When it bakes in the oven, it's gonna have that popcorn-like aroma. So repeat this step with all of your rolls. It's optional, however, it makes the difference. Who doesn't love a seeded roll? It adds flavor to your sandwiches, and it is way better in my opinion. Now, what I suggest is going for that overnight cold ferment. So what I did here was proof these rolls for 30 minutes at room temperature. Now I'm popping them into the fridge for an extra 12 to 24 hours. In the fridge, your dough will be perfectly fermented. Now just transfer these rolls onto whatever you're gonna bake it on. It could be a sheet tray. However, you could even bake these into your pizza oven. Just make sure it's at low temperature. This time, I'm actually scoring the top of these rolls because I want that artisanal look with a nice crusty bake. And for better oven spraying, I happen to be spraying the tops of these rolls, which is going to create more moisture on the surface of the dough, allowing it to open up some more and rise even taller. I'm using my Titoven oven. It is preheated to around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Over 12 minutes they should bake to a nice golden brown. However, as you can see, there's an insane amount of rise with this dough recipe. Those two ingredients really made these rolls improve, not just visually but texturally. It's a thin, crunchy outer layer with a nice golden brown, not overcooked. And wait until you see compared to my older version. These are almost half the size. Look at the crumb, how it's way tighter. Meanwhile, the new and improved crumb happens to be light and airy. Now, this is due to a couple factors. One including the ascorbic acid and diastatic malt powder. However, in my new recipe here, I reduced the amount of salt because salt is what tightens the gluten structure. Now look here as you rip a piece of the interior of this roll. It is soft and airy, and it's super light because salt is what helps keep the gluten structure strong. So what I did here was reduce the amount. Now if you use a home oven, this recipe will work amazingly. Also, if you don't want to go source those ingredients, start out by adding that egg, lowering the amount of salt, and maybe substituting the ascorbic acid for lemon juice. Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I'll see you in the next one.